entering the race.
We are in the battle for the soul of this nation.
Former Vice President Joe Biden says he's running for president. How the announcement affects the field of nearly 24 Democrats. High alert, fears of another terror strike in Sri Lanka. We have a first-hand account of Easter bombings from a priest in the country. Divine Mercy, we take you to Lithuania and the origins of the feast we'll celebrate on Sunday. And the sound of music. Why the person behind the heavenly tunes at Notre Dame Cathedral is in Washington. On EWTN News Nightly for Thursday, April 25th, 2019. Good evening from Washington, D.C., and thank you to those of you joining us from around the world for news from a Catholic perspective. I'm Lauren Ashburn. President Trump fights back against the Muller report. He is refuting testimony given to special counsel Robert Mueller by his former legal counsel, Don McGahn. The president says even though he had the right, he never directed McGahn to fire Mueller, who was looking into collusion between Trump and Russia. White House correspondent Mark Irons reports. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Lauren. Don McGahn, once a top lawyer here at the White House, threatened to step down in 2017 after President Trump ordered him to set in motion the firing of Robert Mueller. That's according to the conclusion of Mueller's investigation, which found no Russian collusion. But still today, we find a president who isn't pleased.
Don McGahn, the former White House lawyer, isn't a household name, but today he's finding some recognition on President Trump's Twitter feed. The president writes, as has been incorrectly reported by the fake news media, I never told then White House counsel Don McGahn to fire Robert Mueller. But McGahn spoke with Mueller during almost 30 hours worth of interviews for the Russia investigation. And according to Mueller's final report, the president did direct Don McGahn to set special counsel Robert Mueller's firing in motion. McGahn refused. Mueller says McGahn feared Trump was setting in motion a series of events akin to the Saturday Night Massacre, referring to President Nixon's effort to break up the Watergate investigation. Now Democrats are calling for McGahn to share his story on Capitol Hill.
We are encouraging him to come in. He doesn't work at the White House anymore. He already waived the privilege.
Still, President Trump is challenging lawmakers who want to hear McGahn's account.
Well, we're fighting all the subpoenas. Look, these aren't like impartial people. The Democrats are trying to win 2020.
The president says if he wanted to fire Mueller, he could have done it himself. Continuing in tweets today, Mueller was not fired and was respectfully allowed to finish his work on what I and many others say was an illegal investigation.
Democratic Congressman Jerry Nadler, chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, says if the White House succeeds in keeping McGahn from Congress, it will represent one more act of obstruction by the Trump administration. Lauren?
White House correspondent Mark Irons. Thank you, Mark. President Trump shows his support for school choice. The president sent a tweet today saying the great state of Tennessee is so close to passing a school choice. All of our nation's children, regardless of background, deserve a shot at achieving the American dream. Time to get this done. So important. Earlier this month, Education Secretary Betsy DeVos visited Nashville. She encouraged state lawmakers to back the plan. Former Vice President Joe Biden announces he is running for president in 2020.
I believe history will look back on 4 years of this president and all he embraces as an aberrant moment in time. But if we give Donald Trump 8 years in the White House, he will forever and fundamentally alter the character of this nation.
Biden, who says he's a practicing Catholic, revealed his plans in a video posted to Twitter. The 76-year-old is an instant frontrunner, along with Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, in a crowded field of 20 major Democratic candidates. The U.S. Embassy in Sri Lanka warns there could be more attacks this weekend at churches. Police continue to search for more suspects in the ISIS-claimed suicide bombings that killed more than 350 people. And since the Easter Sunday terror attacks, police continue to patrol bomb sites, including St. Anthony's Shrine in the Archdiocese of Colombo. Joining me now by Skype from Colombo, Sri Lanka is Father Jude Fernando, pastor at St. Anthony's Shrine. That's one of the Catholic churches attacked on Easter Sunday. Father Jude, welcome to our broadcast.
Thank you.
You were about to enter the church on Easter Sunday when the attack occurred. Describe for our audience what those moments immediately following the blast were like.
I had a narrow escape. If I took 2 steps forward, I would have hurt. But thank God, God saved my life and nothing, no injury at all. Instead of turning right side, I turned into left. It was really a miracle to saving my life. And then I heard a blast. I had never heard in my life a sound like that. Immediately after the blast, I rushed to the altar, and there was a priest who was celebrating the Mass, so I saw he's okay. So I, together with the devotees, community around the shrine, and the priests, brothers who were there to help us, and the people, we tried to evacuate as soon as possible all the casualties to the nearby hospitals. So then only we were able to, I witnessed people were screaming, crying, and I saw the injured people, and I witnessed it to it. So it was a terrible moment, a terrible experience.
Father Jude, you have called for peace and forgiveness. How difficult is that to do, given what you've witnessed, what you're going through?
Honestly speaking, right along the season of Lent, we were preaching and preparing for the celebration of Easter. Our Lord is not a Lord of revenge. He's a Lord of love and peace. That's what we were preaching. And he forgave even the sinners on the top of the cross. He said, Father, forgive them. They do not know what they do. So certainly the immediate thoughts that came to my mind, we are peace-loving people, and we need to preach the good news of the Lord. And we need to share that love. He said, love one another as I have loved you. Even though we have hurt badly, we need to inculcate that spirit of love. It's very painful experience. We are with the victims, we are with the people, we accompany them, we certainly be with them right along the years to come. But then you can't just preach to revenge or hurt another one as they have done to us. We need to show the world that we are Catholics.
The U.S. Embassy in Sri Lanka is warning that places of worship could be targeted for attacks over the coming weekend. Are you scared?
I'm still here. I didn't go home. Still the investigation are going on. They have not cleared the church up to now. We are still under security concern. So myself and my assistant, pastor, we both are here inside the church, and we are going through this experience we have never had in our lives. But certainly I'm not afraid to die, because one day we have to die. But at this moment, I will never leave this church, because I can't leave. This is a place, the worship place, it is a house of prayer where everybody came without their language, religious barriers, the caste, creed, without any discrimination. Everyone stepped into this shrine, and they have witnessed this is a house of prayer, a miraculous place all over the world. So I will be here till the last to rebuild the church, though we cannot give the lives back, but certainly we will rebuild the church with the support of the community, and I will be there till that.
Father Jude Fernando, pastor at St. Anthony's Shrine, God bless you, God bless your flock as you go through this very difficult time. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you, and I want to, give me 1 minute, I want to thank all the people around the world who are with us and who are praying for us, who called and tried to contact us and to share our pain and suffering. They called me and they sent in their condolences. I humbly request them, continue to pray for us and continue to be with us. And please spread the good news, the peace, because we need peace to live everywhere in the world.
Father Jude, thank you. Thank you so much. Pastor at St. Anthony's Shrine in Sri Lanka.
Thank you. God bless you.
Russian President Vladimir Putin says North Korea is ready to get rid of its nuclear weapons if it receives an ironclad guarantee that his nation will be secure. Putin was talking after his summit with Kim Jong-un in Vladivostok. Putin says Moscow and Washington both want Pyongyang to abandon the nuclear weapons program. But first, North Korea says it needs a guarantee of safety from multiple nations. Putin also says he's willing to discuss the details of the meeting with President Trump. The Greek Orthodox Patriarch of Jerusalem performs the traditional washing of the feet outside of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. He is mirroring Jesus washing the feet of his 12 disciples on Holy Thursday. Orthodox Christians will celebrate Easter on Sunday. Pope Francis says deaf people teach us that only by accepting our limitations can we build a culture of encounter instead of widespread indifference. The Holy Father was speaking at a meeting with the Italian Federation of Associations for the Deaf. They were at the Vatican. He says God's presence is not perceived through hearing, but instead through faith, and we hear it, not with our ears, but with our hearts. And the Holy Father met with a group of young people from France, and he told them, quote, "I'm counting on you." He said the church needs the spirit and courage of teens because they renew and rejuvenate the church. Coming up, the Archbishop of Detroit tells us the role lay people can play in helping the church battle the worldwide abuse scandal. And an organic development in Washington, D.C. The Diocese of Allentown opens a fund to compensate survivors of clergy sexual abuse. It is the 7th diocese in Pennsylvania to begin planning for financial payments to victims. Applications are being accepted until the end of September. And in Maryland, the Archdiocese of Baltimore releases the names of 23 priests and religious brothers credibly accused of abuse. All of them are dead, and the claims came posthumously. Officials in Baltimore have named more than 120 clergy members accused of misconduct dating back 80 years. This news comes as religious leaders and the lay faithful gather here in Washington to find a way to address this sex abuse crisis. Joining me now from the Catholic University of America is Archbishop Alan Vigneron of the Archdiocese of Detroit. Your Excellency, welcome to our broadcast.
Happy to be with you today. Thank you.
You say that your pastoral leadership during this clergy sex abuse crisis would not have been possible without the collaboration of the laity. What concrete actions have you taken as a result of that collaboration?
I would say two kinds of actions that have helped improve our policies and principles, and actions that have helped us improve our communications. And on both fronts, it's very important. I've just come from a second session in our seminar when the former University of the President of Virginia made a very strong plea for us bishops to communicate and over-communicate about what we're doing to respond to the current crisis. I think that's been very important as well.
Let's move to survivors. What have you learned from your conversations with them?
I wouldn't say that I've learned a particular fact that I wasn't aware of, but what I've learned is to see their own experience and to share with, they have been able to share with me the depth of the hurt they have felt, and that's been really important for me to have that those concrete images as I have done my part to deal with past instances of abuse, and to do my part to try and see that children are safe in the future.
You refer to the clergy and the laity as co-agents who must pray together. That sounds like a spiritual business model. Is that about the size of it?
Well, I think I offer that point because it's based on the very nature of the church. Part of the life of the church is that prayer is an indispensable element. It doesn't replace any of the naturally needed actions, but it has to be part of what we do together. And I think it isn't only that each of us needs to pray, myself and my co-workers who are lay faithful, we need to pray together. We need to have that common shared prayer. That's very important. I find very often as I talk to lay women and men who are leaders in my diocese and other kinds of organizations, they take opportunities to pray in their organization with their team members. So I don't think it's isolated with the life of the church.
You also stress the importance of team and being attentive to caring for the good of each member. Why is that so important?
Well, I think if we're going to be co-workers together, we have to be attentive to what are the stresses and the challenges that each of us faces as she or he is engaged in this work. And I can't take my team members for granted. I need to be attentive to them. And I'm very grateful when they're attentive to my good and call me out and say, Bishop, you need to be a little more get a little more support and strength for some of what you're engaged in.
Archbishop Alan Vigneron of the Archdiocese of Detroit, thank you for joining us from the Catholic University of America.
You're very welcome. My privilege.
French investigators have begun their first examination inside Notre Dame's cathedral since last week's devastating fire. Among the questions, whether cigarette butts from construction workers could have played a role in the blaze. Experts from 3 police agencies are taking samples and searching for clues. The cathedral is one of the most iconic churches in the world. It suffered extensive damage April 15th. President Emmanuel Macron says he wants to rebuild it in 5 years. The organist who was playing inside Notre Dame when the cathedral caught fire says he's thankful for the outpouring of support from around the globe. And now Johann Vexo is here in Washington, practicing for a concert to raise money for his cathedral. Correspondent Wyatt Goolsby talked with him one-on-one. He joins us from inside the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception. Good evening, Wyatt.
Good evening, Lauren. Catholics here will soon have the pleasure of hearing the world-renowned organist. Johann Vexo has been practicing today on this organ inside of America's largest Catholic church. It looks and sounds a little bit different than the one inside Notre Dame in Paris, but that's not slowing him down as he prepares for a world-class performance.
Johann Vexo is praising the heavens in the same way he's done most of his life, by playing the pipe organ.
We can express different feelings with such an instrument, with very soft sounds, for example, as well as very powerful sounds.
He's performed extensively throughout Europe, Australia, New Zealand, and Russia. This week, he's here in the United States. It was just a week ago Vexo was inside the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, playing the organ during Mass, when he heard an alarm.
Nobody was really worried or concerned about what was happening. We all thought that it was just like a dysfunction or a mistake.
But it wasn't a mistake. No one inside the church realized by the time they left, a fire on the roof grew larger and larger. Vexo, like so many Parisians, watched the cathedral burn for hours.
We all were very devastated after.
A bright spot for the cathedral's choir, the organ survived the fire.
The organ is apparently undamaged. We still have to switch it on to make sure that everything is okay, but the organ is still there.
There is a lot of work to do inside Notre Dame, but Vexo feels more optimistic about the future. Monsignor Walter Rossi, the rector of the Basilica, says the church is happy to welcome Vexo to perform with the choir Basilica. He says it's important the Basilica here in the U.S. support the Catholic community in France.
Notre Dame is our older sister. They're 800 years old, we're 100 years old, and we're both Marian shrines, Marian places of devotion. And so when tragedy strikes in any family reach out to help.
Catholics pray family and faith will give strength to Vexo and the Notre Dame community.
The name of the program tomorrow night is called Together with Notre Dame in Paris. Even if you can't be here in Washington, D.C., our station, EWTN, will air the benefit concert live at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday. And if you want to donate, you can check out the website. It's supportnotredame.org. Lauren?
Correspondent Wyatt Goolsbee reporting from the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception here in Washington. Thank you, Wyatt. Up next, an inside look at the origins of Divine Mercy Sunday. This Sunday, we celebrate the Feast of Divine Mercy. It's a Catholic devotion based on St. Faustina Kowalska's encounter with Jesus. Tonight, Alan Holdren, our Rome Bureau Chief, takes us to Vilnius, Lithuania, where the iconic image is located.
Saint Faustina was a Polish nun and mystic. She's known as the Apostle of Divine Mercy after reporting visions of Christ inside this house.
We are in St. Faustina's house, and in most important place in the house, in place where lived St. Faustina. And in this place, Sister Faustina had many meetings with Jesus, many visions of Jesus. In this place, she began write her diary. In this place, Jesus dictated for St. Faustina a chaplet of Divine Mercy. Was here in Vilnius, Sister Faustina met Father Sopochka.
Father Sopochka was Sister Faustina's spiritual director when she moved to Vilnius in 1933. He believed her reports and commissioned an artist to paint an image according to her account. It shows Christ with his right hand raised as if giving a blessing, and his left hand touching his chest. Two rays, one red, one white, are said to signify water and blood coming from his heart. Now a copy of the original painting is displayed in this chapel that used to be the artist's studio. Right here in absolute secrecy, under strict supervision by St. Faustina, the image was completed in 1934.
That strong tie with the image of Divine Mercy and the Mother of Mercy Chapel continues to this day, marking Vilnius very much as a city of mercy.
Now pilgrims come to the city in droves to visit the home where St. Faustina recorded her visions and conversations with Jesus in her diary.
The message of the Divine Mercy is very important for the Church nowadays, for all the world. And I invite you to come here in Vilnius to touch that message, to touch that experience of the Divine Mercy, to get it and to bring to all the world.
In 2005, the original image of Divine Mercy was transferred to the Holy Trinity Church in Vilnius and installed over the center of the altar. It's become an international shrine to the mercy of God. In Rome, Alan Holdren, EWTN News Nightly.
What a beautiful report. Our thanks to the Rome team for putting that together. Now, Pope John Paul II canonized Sister Faustina in 2000 and established the first Sunday after Easter as Divine Mercy Sunday. For all of us here at EWTN News Nightly, to all of you around the world, thank you for watching. I'm Lauren Ashburn. Keep in touch online. Follow me at Lauren Ashburn on Twitter and Lauren Ashburn EWTN on Facebook. Good night, and God bless you.